Я запрошую до слова Stavros Papaginais, керуючий директор RCP Communication, автор книги «Ребрейдинг Європи».
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me. My name is Stavros Papagianneas. I am the managing director of STP Communications, and I'm also a writer. I've published several books about communications and about communicating Europe. So I've been a former diplomat, and I was also an official of the European Commission. So today I will speak about propaganda, about fake news, disinformation, misinformation, hate speech, actually all forms of propaganda, and I would say all children of the same mother. I will focus on social media as propaganda vehicle and social media as global disseminators of disinformation. So I will skip some slides. So it's a fact that digital media that are becoming are more important every day, but unfortunately, the internet is full of examples of propaganda. Some of that is driven by ideology, but most is driven by the economic incentive structure of social media. Social media, I believe, should care more about the truthfulness of the news that users share on these platforms. So in 2018, Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web, wrote on his regular birthday letter that he does every year that the web that many connected years ago is not what new users will find today. So, and specifically, he said, what was once a rich selection of blogs and websites has been compressed under the powerful weight of a few dominant platforms. And I'm speaking, of course, about Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, now X. And this concentration of powers creates a new set of gatekeepers, allowing a handful of platforms to control which ideas and opinions are seen and shared. So, and I'm coming to the Russian propaganda, which we are focusing today. And we have seen that in 2017, after the election of the first Trump government, three main American agencies like the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA confirmed that there has been interference in the elections of 2016. So the objective was, according to this joint report, was to undermine the confidence of Americans in their electoral system and to denigrate Hillary Clinton. So I believe that the model of propaganda today, of Russian propaganda, can be defined as the fire hose of falsehood. And because they have high numbers of channels that they are used, messages and dissemination also a very high quantity of partial truths and lies. So It's quick, it's continuous, it's repetitive, and sometimes, and a lot of times, I would say, it lacks of consistency. So, about the invasion of Ukraine, we have seen an acceleration of this kind of propaganda, disinformation, hate speech, and I have categorized three major narratives of this kind of propaganda used by the Russian government to justify and to shape perceptions on the invasion of Ukraine. The first is the Nazi narrative. So Russia is claiming that the invasion was needed to denazify Ukraine, portraying the government that is controlled by Nazis, and this was in the Russian state media. But we have the president, of course, of Ukraine, who is a Jew, and that is one fact. The second fact is that far-right parties receive very small support in Ukrainian elections, and extremist groups exist not in a higher scale than in other European countries. So, what was the purpose of this Nazi narrative? It's to justify the invasion for internal proposals in the Russian market, in the Russian. I'm sorry, I'm in PR business, and sometimes I speak about markets, but it's about countries, of course. So, for internal purposes in the country. It was closed all the time? No, okay, but I know I have a very high voice, so. So, and to frame Russia as a liberator. So, as second, we have the genocide narrative. So, it was that in Ukraine they committing suicide, genocide against Russian speakers, people in the eastern Ukraine, and the Russian action was to help these civilians, and the narrative was that they were persecuting ethnic Russians or Russian speakings also in the Donbas region. Of course, this is, we all know that this is a lie, and that also Russian speaking Ukrainians are fighting against the Russians from Russia. So, international organizations, the European Union, and the United Nations found no evidence of genocide of Russian speakers. What was the purpose of that? Is to, again, to create a humanitarian, sorry, this is the slide about the genocide narrative. The purpose was to create a humanitarian justification for intervention and to mobilize domestic support by portraying Russia as protecting vulnerable populations. So this is.
Момент. Одна секунда. Одна хвилина.
1 minute, oh my God. The worst and the third narrative then, it's that the West is against us. The Ukraine is controlled by NATO. So Russians claim that Ukraine is not a fully sovereign country and it's a puppet country controlled by the West. And Russian media often frame the war as Russia defending itself from the West. So what is the purpose here? It's to shift blame for the conflict, for the invasion from Russia to the West, and reframe the war as part of a broader geopolitical struggle. So I have here at the end, I have here a example from Novosti News Agency of the 4th March, and saying that Zelensky has found a new way to destroy Ukraine. And Russia is saving thousands of Ukrainian children from Epstein's followers. So here we have a narrative of they try to connect Zelensky to Epstein. So they suggest that child trafficking by Ukrainian authorities are consistent with previous narratives that have been repeatedly debunked. So this is, of course, a false article with connecting Zelensky to Epstein. So, and this is the, at last, I wanted to say a little bit about the methodology, is silence denial. So we have some ways to tackle that. Is media literacy, fact checking, of course, and in Europe we have the Digital Services Act, which is trying to make the big platforms more responsible. And as last, I would like to give you some useful sources to tackle propaganda. Is EU versus Disinfo, which is from the European External Service, part of the European Commission, which has a lot of examples of Russian propaganda. You have the snopes.com, which is a fact checker of fake news, and it's very good to use it. And then, at last, I would like to speak here to talk to you about a report that has been published in the beginning of the month by Citra. Thank you very much for your attention.
Дякую.